The day Sarah Mitchell's 6-year-old son was rushed into emergency surgery, she truly believed her family would be there for her. But the phone call she received brought everything to a standstill. Her mother refused to come to the hospital, not because she was sick, not because she lived too far away, but because she was preparing to leave on a week-long luxury cruise. Sarah sat motionless on a cold plastic chair in the hospital corridor. Harsh white lights spilled down from the ceiling, illuminating the exhaustion etched across her face. Behind the closed operating room doors was Ethan, her little boy, undergoing surgery without his grandmother by his side. Meanwhile, new photos kept appearing on social media. Her younger brother, Tyler, was enjoying a beach vacation. Laughter, elegant dinners, cocktails glowing beneath a golden sunset, all of it unfolding while Sarah sat anxiously waiting for news from the surgeon. A strange feeling began to creep into her heart. It was not anger, it was doubt. As night fell, Sarah opened the banking app on her phone. At first, she only intended to review a few recent payments, but then the familiar transactions began appearing one after another. Housing assistance, emergency expenses, medical support. Month after month, year after year, Sarah quietly scrolled down. The more she looked, the heavier her heart became. For nearly a decade, she had believed she was helping her family survive difficult times. But for the first time, a question entered her mind. If things were truly as difficult as they always claimed, why did they always seem to have money to enjoy life while she was the one carrying all the weight? Outside the operating room, Sarah tightened her grip on her phone. She had no idea that this night would become the beginning of the biggest truth she would ever uncover in her life. The surgery was a success. The doctors assured Sarah that Ethan would make a full recovery. It should have been the best news of the week. But for Sarah, another storm was just beginning. The very next morning, her phone would not stop vibrating. Messages from relatives, calls from aunts, uncles, and family members she barely spoke to. Every conversation carried the same message. Her mother was struggling. Her mother was hurt. Her mother could not understand why Sarah had suddenly changed. Sarah quietly read every message. No one asked how she was doing. No one asked whether Ethan was recovering well. It seemed that the only thing anyone cared about was the fact that the familiar stream of money had disappeared. That evening, after Ethan had fallen asleep, Sarah sat at the kitchen table with her husband. Mark opened his laptop. For the first time in years, they decided to review the entire history of financial transfers. The numbers appeared like pieces of a disturbing puzzle. The so-called medical expenses accounted for only a small fraction of the money. Most of it had been withdrawn almost immediately after it was received. Vacations, shopping bills, luxury resort payments, even cruise bookings. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. She had worked overtime. She had skipped her own vacations. She had postponed plans to buy a larger home for her small family. Meanwhile, someone else had been living comfortably on those sacrifices. Then an unexpected phone call came in. The caller was the attorney who had represented her grandmother, Margaret, before she passed away. He told Sarah there were documents she needed to see. Documents connected to her family. Documents connected to secrets that had been hidden for years. Sarah said nothing. A powerful feeling settled deep inside her. The truth she had uncovered might only be the tip of the iceberg, and someone in her family had known about it for a very long time. Sunday evening arrived much faster than Sarah expected. Her mother's house was packed with relatives. Laughter and conversation filled the living room as though nothing unusual had happened. But the moment Sarah walked in with Mark, the atmosphere changed. Linda spoke first. She talked about the hardships she had been facing. She spoke about the sacrifices of a mother. She spoke about the gratitude children should have for their parents. And finally, she looked directly at Sarah. Her eyes were filled with accusation, as if everything happening that day was somehow Sarah's fault. What no one knew was that Sarah had come prepared. She placed a folder in the center of the table. Every eye immediately turned toward it. Inside was a record of financial transfers, spanning many years. Every payment, every date, every transaction. No emotion. No accusations. Only facts. The room slowly fell silent. The smile disappeared from Linda's face. Tyler lowered his head and stared at the numbers in front of him with an expression no one had ever seen before. Then the door behind them opened. Margaret's attorney walked into the room. He placed another folder on the table. Inside were legal documents that had been notarized years earlier. Margaret had known about the family's financial situation for a very long time. She knew who had been giving. She knew who had been taking advantage. And she knew who genuinely cared about the family's future. When the trust documents were revealed, the entire room seemed to stop breathing. The most important assets she left behind were not going to Linda. They were not going to Tyler. The beneficiaries were Sarah and Ethan, the grandson Margaret had always believed would have a brighter future. Linda sat frozen in her chair. For the first time in many years, she no longer controlled the story. Sarah looked around the room. She did not feel victorious. She did not feel satisfied. She only felt relieved. Because at last, the truth had spoken on her behalf. And for the first time in many years, she no longer had to save anyone.